Always very nice to be here, and I do wish you all a very prosperous New Year. I hope, and I'm sure it will be, a much more peaceful one than we are fearing at the present time. But I believe that there is a greater power in this world than man. It was Einstein who said, the greatest power in the universe is the spiritual power. And there is no power known to science that is greater than the spiritual power of the universe. And here we are facing those who believe that they can remove the power of God and replace it with the power to dominate the world. We are great people that have come, and you and I, through the power of God itself. No man, no nation can rise to these heights to dictate the future of mankind. The spiritualist movement is based entirely upon this knowledge that God is the greater. That we who are humans are brought here through the power of God, that we may be able to make this world something whereby the great spirit of life can flow through the people here, and eventually in the universe itself take life to all parts of this universe. God is something we create, equally that we create evil itself. And yet we know that the greatest power is the power of goodness. In some mysterious way that we do not understand, there is a divine law that cannot be broken. There is a divine law that even when death comes, when the hopelessness of death seems to be there, we recognize this moment, this tremendous moment of this movement of one's self, one's consciousness, away from a physical body that has died, to move on, living, moving, and having its being in life itself. So we have to try, ladies and gentlemen, to understand that there is a purpose for this earth, and there is a purpose for you and I, because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and it was God who said, let there be light. And we understand light to be life. Oh, I know that most people fear death. And most people, when they have loved ones, not only fear it, but dread the consequences of death. And yet we realize from time immemorial, there's always been something that's told us that death was not the end. A little while ago, a lady who's a vice president of our church, her mother was very, very ill. And she asked me if I would go and see her, and I said, of course. A very dominating character was her mother. She was at one time a headmistress, so you can imagine what type of lady she was, and a tough one. And she was the type that even after retirement, she insisted on going back to take on those who needed extra tuition and push them on. She couldn't tolerate laziness or anything like that. I suppose really she dominated her family, but at the same time they had a tremendous love and respect. Well, whenever I used to preach and speak, she was always sitting there. If I quoted from the Bible, she used to come to me and say, you know, you misquoted that. Doesn't mean that at all. She and I used to have arguments, and I used to say, well, one day we will all know the answers. Doesn't look as though you and I will never agree on anything. But she was that type. She was a spiritualist, but deep down were those things that she knew and believed, and you couldn't move her. Well, I went to see her, and of course she was so ill that they were really keeping her drugged, that she seemed to be unconscious. I sat there talking, and all at once, as I was sitting by the bedside with her daughter there, her grandson came, his grandson, and all at once I saw a man with it. And I recognized that it was Mrs. Middleton's husband. That's the mother and father to the girl, the lady that's in our church. Not that I'd ever met him in this world, but I had met him in the other world, and I recognized him. He had spoken to me several times. He completely ignored me. He completely ignored his daughter and went straight to the grandson. And as he came in, he was not a spiritualist, the grandfather just came to him and loved him and moved, as he moved towards the mother that was lying there, the grandmother was lying there in this unconscious state. I noticed that he, as he bent to kiss his grandmother, so did this spirit that was his grandfather kiss her at the same time. And so he was waiting for that moment to put emotion into this young man, so that the mother would feel the emotion from him. Well, I thought I won't say anything about this until the boy, then the young man, said, would you like a coffee? I'll go and fetch you one from the sort of cafe they have in the hospital. And when he went, his sister arrived, and we just chatted. She went off with him, and I turned to his mother and said, your mother now is safe. Your father has come for her. And she woke him up. Isn't it lovely to know she's not passing away alone? So we came away, and I said, I don't think you're going to see your mother again. I think this is the last. But don't tell your grandchildren, your son and daughter. Let them accept it as it is. And of course, in the early hours of the morning, she passed away. What do I mean? Ladies and gentlemen, look what those miss that don't understand what we understand. Look, when we are looking at someone and we know they're passing, and we are saying, God, I don't think we can stand them to suffer any longer. Let them pass. And yet, if only we had vision to see for one moment what really is taking place. Look how wonderful to know there was someone else there. That though we couldn't get through to them as we think physically in any way, there was some way that the Spirit could get through. And doesn't this change our life from realizing that there is this sort of emptiness that one considered death to be? This sort of something of waiting, wondering what was next, to know what is next. This brings to us such a reality that we know without question that there is a God. But not a God that is crucified on a cross, but a God that was within, that enabled that man to go through that experience and come out of it the richer, the greater, the purer, the more loving. For what was the greatest thing in the life of Jesus? His miracles? Oh no. The wonderful things he said? Oh no, ladies and gentlemen. Because had he have never returned from the grave, had he not approved his own teachings, he would have been forgotten, like many of us are forgotten, not alone shortly after we've passed over. Life goes on. But Jesus knew this. He knew that the only way that he could prove the power of God was with his own life. And he knew that he had to come back and proved that life was eternal, even though he'd proven by miracles and all sorts of things it was insufficient. Because they all denied it. They all said, no, he hasn't come back. That in moments of stress, when you've done so much, have you not felt to yourself, why is that forsaken me? Why has this all happened to me? Why am I being held down like this? Here you take the greatest person in history who has dominated our lives for 2,000 years. Dominated them because of his character, not of his miracles, but of something else, ladies and gentlemen. When his body was weak, when he gave up, did he not at that splendid moment when he said, why hast thou forsaken me? And then at the very end, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That, to me, was a supremacy of spirit. Because that was the moment that when all of us fail, we all feel bitter at times. We all feel envy at times. We all feel something against something in life. But here was a man that rose above that has found the spirit that has made this world go on. The spirit that has risen at times of great need. And isn't that what we need at the present time? Do we all need to feel that war and these things of war are the most important things in life? Should we not be going to the very heart of the power of the Spirit? Was it not the Spirit of life? Was it not what Jesus said when he said, ladies and gentlemen, destroy my body if you will, but I will return within 3 days? He knew that the greatest power in the universe was the spiritual power. And that's the way we should be now. We shouldn't be talking of prayer. We shouldn't be talking of these things, but we should do something about it. We should not be sort of just waiting for moments, but building our relationship with the greatest power of all, the power of God that lies deep within our being. And if spiritualists cannot believe that, then they're not spiritualists. Because spiritualism is about God's power. It's about the greatest power in the universe. It's about the power that even death cannot destroy. It's the power that enables us to move on beyond death. And your greatest triumph and your greatest triumph is when you are faced with situations that drag you down. You don't ask God to remove the boldness from your path. You ask God to give you the strength to be able to pass through those experiences. It's to be able to rise and not allow ourselves to be chained to this earth, to be chained to these things. It is for us to be released from it. For us to triumph over death. It's to triumph over these things. And we can, if we don't allow ourselves to be pulled down to it. To release ourselves. And to be part of this great power that we know is there.